My last article focused on keeping our teams safe at work. So that all focused around your teams actually physically being on site with you where you operate your business from. However, I ended that article with the questions around what happens if you have employees who work from home. So we know that we've had this hybrid work environment for some time now, and it has continued on from the COVID period. However, there are a number of organisations, especially those larger ones, who are now asking employees to come back to the office, but they can still maintain that type of hybrid work where they may be in the office for 3 days out of the week and 2 days they work from home. It still leaves questions open then around, okay, well, how do we keep our employees safe when they're at home, when they're working in that environment? And we actually, as employers, still have an obligation to ensure that our employees are working in a safe environment when they're at home. Now, there are a number of things that we need to consider, aren't there? I mean, some of the first things that always come to mind for me, maybe shows my age a little bit, but there are things that I learned a long time ago, all around the ergonomics and how someone will be set up to actually perform their work physically to ensure that there aren't any sort of injuries that can occur. Because I did see an article recently, didn't read it properly, I must say, where someone sued their employer because they fell over a gate for a puppy. They fell over that in their own working environment. So you've got to think about those sorts of things, like where's the risk assessment of understanding the physical layout of home and how you're working in that, and what are the things that can pose a risk to you physically in how you get around and do things. And also when you're sitting at that desk, are you sitting in a way which is ergonomically sound? However, there are other things that come up when people are working in the home environment. And some things for some people hard to wrap their head around is, how do we know they're working? And look, there are plenty of systems, I'm sure you know, that can be put in place, where you can monitor what employees are doing. So whilst they're on that laptop, you can understand whether they're working or not. You can monitor that. Some people, some businesses will not go that way. I mean, if the goals and expectations have been put in place, you're going to understand whether they're achieving what you've set out for them to achieve. And you would think in that sort of environment where there may not be as many distractions as if they were in the physical office, they should power through things. Not always the case. And that is where we come to, well, what are the other sorts of things that can be happening in the home? What are the quality controls we need to put in place? Because in that last article, I did speak about psychosocial hazards, and there is obviously the possibility that those things can be in the home environment, depending on that person's own personal situation. I mean, you can take into consideration things like children when they're coming home from school, that sort of thing. There will obviously be a time frame there where they'll need to tend to those children, to set them up to do their homework and things like that. I mean, me personally, one of the biggest distractions for me when I'm working from the home environment is barking dogs. My barking dogs, because that can be really distracting for me, especially when I'm trying to work on something. However, there may be other things that are going on in the home environment for some people that isn't positive. If there are issues with relationships, if there are issues with sleep patterns, fatigue management, all of these things will have an impact on that person and how well they're going to be able to manage, attending to their work, even though they're in that sort of environment. And that's where we, as employers, need to be looking for those red flags. What are the things that are standing out for us where we think something's just not right there? They're not hitting their targets. They don't see themselves. They maybe not, if you're having online meetings, things like that, maybe they're not getting on to those, they're avoiding that. These are things to be sort of constantly aware of. And that takes me back to that question around how do we know they're working? Yes, you can have monitoring systems on laptops and things like that, but how about good old-fashioned connection? Regular check-ins, speaking with your team member about how things are going, what they need help with, stuff like that. It's that connection piece, because for some people it can be isolating working from home. Others love it. It really suits who they are. But like I mentioned in that article last week, as social beings, we all still want that connection. So it's one of the things that I would highly encourage and recommend, is that is one of the foundational things that we keep happening if someone is going to continue with that hybrid type of work. Make sure there are those connection points. Make sure that we do get them back into the office for certain days so that they are working with the team, so those things aren't getting missed, because we actually need them. So what are the sorts of things that you're putting in place to ensure that if you are having this hybrid work, working from home, flexible working arrangements in your business, what are the sorts of things you're putting in place? There's actually lots of resources out there to help you, toolkits, things like that, to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's going to be successful and looks after not only your business, but also looks after your employee, your team member, and keeps them safe while they're working in the home environment.